Hey, welcome back to Matt Laber's best place for anybody who wants to create a business, whether if you are in a job where you're trying to create something to free yourself up, give yourself some financial income, extra financial income, or if you are a solopreneur. But today in this video, we're going to be continuing what we were last talking about, and that is we're going to be talking about dealing with two different bosses when you're in a single job. So, MJ, have you ever dealt with two bosses at the same time?
Sorry, what do you mean by two bosses at the same time? You mean
that means you're working in a job and you have to report simultaneously to two bosses, and none of them have a clear distinction on who has more power.
I would say that no, but I've had to report to two bosses, but one was unclear, one was clear. So that in and of itself creates a complicated dynamic also, because then one of those bosses, the clear boss will be frustrated with the unclear boss, especially if the unclear boss is the bigger boss.
Why do you have to report to two of them?
So therein lies the problem, all right, where I have to work together on a project with boss A, but boss B is the CEO. So I also have to report to him. And so there would be no triangulation of the information. So I'll receive mixed messages that will bring back, like Harry Potter's owl, Hedwig, things like that. And they are too busy to get in the same room or give each other a call. So that made it difficult, yeah.
I've dealt with two bosses at the same time who happen to be. It's a very complicated structure. I think usually when it comes to places that you have to report to do two bosses, that structurally it's like not very clear. Something's not quite right. It's probably created because there's like political issues, where you don't want to upset one person, so you put them in another division, but you want to still give that person some power in some things. Yeah. So that is always a complicated issue. And I once had this situation where for 3 years, I have to talk to a boss who I have to propose ideas while at the same time the other boss have to look into whether is it financially feasible.
Yeah.
So what then happens is that I would occasionally find myself working on things that one boss finds great, but the other find it, may not be that worth it.
Yeah.
And it's actually sucking money out of the company. So because of that, I think it's very tough as an employee to then navigate what is the right way to do things. So a lot of them ended up just having stuck and frustrated and not really knowing what to do. So what would you say to those people in this situation? How would they deal with that?
I don't know how they should. All I would know is that in my position, I would be transparent about the communication from me and also what I receive from the two bosses. Yeah. I do not want to be an obstacle by creating more obfuscation or more confusion, and to bring to light the contradictions and the inconsistency of both bosses. And that might not look good on them both, but I'm just going to highlight it.
Yeah,
that's and then part of it is because basically I didn't really care if I was fired or whatever. it didn't matter to me, because for me it was like we need to get the job done, right? And if you're gonna fire me because I'm gonna bruise your ego or whatever, then okay, I'll fire, right?
That's actually a good move though.
Yeah.
Because
so it's like I bring it up or in the straight up in the company WhatsApp group. I just put it, say, hey, we on this issue. I don't even use email CC because I'll make it like public. On this issue, I've been told by boss X that this needs to happen. But boss Y is different. But I don't do it in like a rude way. I just say like, this seems to be not, I won't use the word contradicting or anything, but this seems to be
You just highlight the differences that's happening.
different. Which one do I go for?
Yeah.
So I just push.
That's
push this
actually
up.
a great method to resolve this issue, though.
It's about creating the urgency for these bosses.
Correct.
So it's just pushing this to go. Now guys, before we move on, just to let you know, we have a mentorship program where you can apply to and work with us so that we can guide you how to build a business on social media. If that's something for you, go ahead and apply. Links are in the description and the comments.
And another great thing is that when you point that out, you will then get the two bosses to talk to each other.
Yeah.
And they just come back with a finalized conclusion, like pass it down to you, and then you can go ahead.
But
and
unfortunately, those two bosses didn't like each other in the end. So
that always
it didn't
happens.
work. It didn't work. But
wait, that one happened instead.
Sorry?
What happened instead? You tried that method, it didn't work.
Then it became, a Cold War. It just became a Cold War. Talking behind each other's back. People, complaining to me, other stuff. Just negative gossip, things like that, right?
That's always the frustrating thing when you want to come out to work. Instead of ending up creating great work, you ended up dealing with politics.
But you see, ultimately, the issue is not with... The real issue was, in my specific scenario, was the CEO. It was that spineless, a spineless boss. I know I'm using a very harsh word, but really what I'm trying to say with spineless is that he couldn't really make a decision. And when he made a decision, he doesn't want to be seen as commanding. So what he will do is he really know what he wants. But he will ask people around their opinion, what do you think of this, what do you think of that, to be seen as an open-minded, a boss that considers your opinion, which is the in-trend thing, right, today. But when he asks you that opinion, he checked out after you start talking for 15 seconds. Right, because you can see like the body language, he doesn't really care about your answer. So if you listen, okay, then you just go with his opinion without any reason, without contending or really assessing your views. I don't really care too much if the boss accepts my view or not, but I do care whether or not, and this is true for anyone, it's not just a boss, but I do care if they've considered and contend. And I know when someone has considered. Give you a basic example, right? I used to do presentations to 100, 150 people, like our clients back then, right? These were premium clients. A lot of them were high net worth individuals. So I had to do a presentation as a young guy, in my early to mid 20s. And it will be a presentation about a specific investment. So I will present it. And my boss would be watching it my CEO then would be watching it for 5 minutes, and then he would go out and do something else. So after, I complete the presentation, and then it seemed like, everything was fine, no big complaints. And then he comes to me and say, I think your presentation needs a bit more meat, and I think that, there were some issues with your presentation. So I said, okay, which area, because in my head, I know this boss is really not, what's the word? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Because he was only there for 5 minutes. So then I said, is there a specific area in my presentation that you think needs fixing? Then obviously he couldn't answer. So I said, no problem, we have a recording. So we record all our presentations. And I said, okay, you should just watch and let me know. And I know when someone contends or when someone considers my views, my performance or whatever, if they actually go through it. And they are able to say, okay, look, I think it's an hour-long presentation. I think at minute 17, you should have said this. Or you should have said that. Or maybe you should say it a different way. So then I can highly respect that, because I'm like, okay, you've really, really looked at my stuff and you're giving criticism. It's the equivalent of, if you don't do that, it's the equivalent of criticizing food that you don't eat.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of CEO I was dealing with, among many of his other faults. But that was the kind of, yeah. I'm not sure where we're heading to, but I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah. I mean, like, you've already given your resolution in terms of how to deal with two bosses, which is, personally, I think it's a good way, because you want to remove yourself from the equation of the political, war that's going on. So just by putting it out in the public and letting the two bosses to just, talk to each other or don't talk to each other, you remove yourself from the responsibility of making bad decisions on your own. So because you've already asked, hey, this is as far as I could come to. I think for myself, the resolution that I would like to give is actually probably nothing, no different than yours. Just being transparent, just communicate it out.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you have to deal with this kind of working place, working culture, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, I think it helps also to have a mindset of not being results, or rather being results independent. You want the results, the good results, but you don't care if you don't get it. Once you don't care about whether you achieve the thing and you just do quote unquote the right thing, I think that's going to be very helpful, right? Because then you'll be able to come up with these kind of solutions. But let's say you say, oh no, but I don't want to anger any one of them. I want to be seen as good. I don't want to step on the wrong toes. Then, you make the problem even worse because things don't get resolved. Yeah, that's how I think about it anyways.
Well, there you go. Hope it helps you guys who are also dealing with two bosses. And if you don't find yourself in a great place and you want to start something new, perhaps checking out the link in the comments down below where you can download our free guide if you happen to be launching and running something out new. So if you guys like this series where we talk about bosses, perhaps comment down below and let us know if we should talk about other types of bosses that may be bad in your workplace. See you guys again next time.